The black man built the foundation of America brick by brick. Do you remember? Black people picked cotton as they were abused lick by lick. White babies dangling from my ancestors' breasts. Mammy cooking them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They thought that we couldn't live without them, yet we started civilization. We taught them. We raised them. Do you remember? Plotting and visualizing ways to break free, we were finally released from the chains of slavery. There was hope to create our own thriving communities. There were businesses and homes. We proved that we could survive and support our own. They became envious of our prosperity in return. Fires were deliberately set to our businesses and homes. Tears from my ancestors fell as they watched from afar, those flames reflected in their eyes as the smoke continued to rise. Their hearts were broken with a solemn beat. All their hopes came down along with the buildings, Black Wall Street.
What we saw in the past was that the key to freedom and liberation was Black people controlling their own destiny. That's why it was destroyed. Today, we have to do the same thing. We need to control our own destiny. We need to invest in our community. We need to create the seed beds for opportunity, and then we need to invest in that.
I think today we are in a unique environment. There's two different lenses that you can look through. And so I think the philosophical debate that occurred before between Booker T and W.E.B. Du Bois, that still rages. How can we control dollars?
For a long time, Black people were told, okay, we have to get our education. We have to go to colleges, and that's the way we're going to make our wealth. But that's not the only way we're going to make our money. We have to really start investing in ourselves.
Can you imagine the kind of the state of being that the communities will be in if we have money and resources flowing back into our communities?
Communities is something that we can build on, keeping our money circulating through our neighborhoods as we can see our building together. Our kids can see that. With that right there, that builds growth within the mental.
Because people like you are educating, bringing light to, you need to shop black, shop black, shop black. There's companies like Support Black and Support HBCUs. That's another Black company. And yeah, Buy Black. Like there's so many communities now where we're more aware.
Growing up Black in America means you have to fact check your history. For some reason, the books we grew up reading in school left out important information about our past, which could help improve our future. For instance, did you know there was a time in the U.S. when Black people had a lot of money? Enough money to start their own town with their own businesses. And this was way before Martin Luther King ever had a dream. A young entrepreneur by the name of O.W. Gurley learned about land reserved for Blacks only in Oklahoma and purchased 40 acres. Being educated and determined for greatness, Gurley opened a general store in town of a 2-story building on 119th North Greenwood Avenue, and later, many more properties.
By leaving those parts of the story, we develop an understanding of America that's different than what it should be. When we tell the story of Tulsa, we only tell it in very small quarters. You can go through school and not ever hear the story of Tulsa. You can go through fancy high schools, fancy colleges. You can be a historian and not fully understand what Black folk did. And as Black folk, it's almost definite, it's almost certain that you're going to go through your whole life and not know the story of Tulsa. And so by controlling the historical narratives of who and what we are and who and what we've done, the government has the ability to make us think that we're something less than what we were.
Consequently, what's unique about Tulsa was the fact that there was a migration of African Americans into Tulsa. And then there was also some recruitment into Tulsa, which I think is also unique. So what you had was a concentration of African Americans all moving to the same section, which is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And once they were in that section of town, they were building their own businesses and creating their own residence.
Black Wall Street was Black excellence on display, that the Black dollar circulated over 21 times before it left the District of Greenwood, that Black people owned planes and led schools and banks, and they truly were like the economic engine of this part of the country.
I was just so impressed that O.W. Gurley goes into an area, buys a plot of land, and says, I'm only going to sell it to my people. That's tough. Because I know somebody came with some money that may have not looked like his target market, saying, yo, I'll buy this for this amount. I'll give you a high dollar, but I believe Mr. Gurley saw ahead. You know what I mean? But the fact that a group, like, we can start from just one person's idea, and if the idea is powerful enough or strong enough, it can spread, and then we have a whole community.
At that time, nothing was given to us. Nothing was given to us. And I believe that somebody said, let's start our own bank. If they're going to deny us the privileges that they give it to everyone else, let's do our own thing.
I think when you look at when you look at Tulsa, or you look at Rosewood, or you look at Winston-Salem, Massachusetts, which a lot of people forget about, that these were very thriving communities that infrastructure was totally by African Americans, our best and our brightest. And I think that these gentlemen understood the value in spending dollars with each other, about reinvesting those dollars through banks, through insurance companies, through businesses, helping their community grow.
When you look back at history, and when you look at when that movement, that period of time happened, we by default was in control of our money. And being in control of our money, we had a very vibrant and a very thriving community. We had Black business ownership. We had so many doctors and so many nurses and so many business owners, all contained in our community. And the fascinating thing about that is that the Black Wall Street experience, it wasn't a lot of people. It was only 10,000 residents in the whole town of Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was Black, but it was the most prominent and most prosperous community in all of the United States.
I mean, great. So the thing about that is that I'm learning new things every day, because that event has been so buried and purposely not wanting to be released that it's like you have to actually do research and detective work to find out exactly what happened. And so I've always, of course, you have the internet and you have Google, but there's some things that are not going to be there. And so running into members of the family, there's a woman, Laura Strafford, who's a direct descendant of one of the owners of a hotel in the Greenwood district that was burned down, and getting in contact with people that are relatives and friends of their family, and learning things that I never heard before about how they were disposing of bodies by, flying over water and dumping the bodies out of the plane into. These are things that I would have never found if I just stuck to Google and YouTube. So I'm learning about that entire area and situation and how they were able to come together, and, wondering why I didn't hear about this in elementary school and when I was coming up and growing up.
Just going back and thinking about how they got there, how they accumulated that wealth, how they were a part of the land grab up front. Is so powerful. It just confirms the strength that we come from, as a race. And so when I look at how they were able to, way back then in the early 1900s, really manage the dollar so that it stayed within the community by excelling in every facet there was. You had the lawyers, the doctors, the pharmacists. Everywhere you turned in that area in Greenwood, there was a Black-owned business.
Success leaves clues everywhere. Those businesses, those Black-owned businesses were successful. They were scalable. They were the kind of businesses that could create generational wealth, but also they were the kind of businesses that one of the things that I remember the most of what I read about Black Wall Street was that they circulated the black dollar in their own community for 5 years. These days, money doesn't circulate in the black community more than one day after payday. And I think that that is what is tragic. I think that knowing how those businesses were built and how they were sustained, and a lot of it had to do with segregation, obviously. In 1921, Black people were not able to go into white establishments and do business, so they created their own. And I think that there's obviously those businesses were bolstered by that because Black folks didn't have an option. Unfortunately, when things became desegregated, then we didn't focus on doing business with people that looked like us as much. And unfortunately, that has brought down generations of Black people, I believe.
Reconstruction was really, I think, the contextual narrative to why the African Americans moved to that area. So once there was oil found in and around 1905, and that discovery happened, there was a need for increased labor. There was a set of railroad tracks that existed in the area where the African Americans actually settled. And many of them would take during the daytime and they would work as domestic workers on the other side for the existing larger town. And then the others would remain in the area and work for the businesses. And what's unique about those businesses is that they represented an economic corridor, unlike the types of economic corridors that we see today. So if you think about today, there are just as many, if not more, Black-owned businesses, but they're not concentrated together in the same area, nor is there the mix of businesses all concentrated in the same area. So thinking of the number of restaurants that were there, the professionals, whether it was a dentist's office or where you got your shoes repaired, or the number of grocery stores or the hardware store, they were all concentrated in the same location.
On one level, it's hard for me to even fathom that we had something like that. I remember my first time going to Washington, D.C., and they would always call it Chocolate City. But to go and see so many Black people dressed up in their suits and walking around, and you know they have good jobs and, you know, nice houses, that was the first time I actually could even ingest the idea that we, as a group of people, not just him or her, but a whole lot of us walking around being proud and having our own. That was the first time I could actually even believe that idea. Isn't that crazy?
The district of Greenwood became so financially successful, it was nicknamed Black Wall Street in Tulsa by Booker T. Washington. Some whites used the district to their advantage, routinely borrowing money from the Black banks, but other whites saw the prosperity as a direct threat to their way of life and were growing increasingly frustrated with the privileges they saw the Blacks enjoying. One day, a white teenage divorcee by the name of Sarah Page arrived from Kansas City, and a Black young delivery boy, described as a boot Black, encountered each other on an elevator. His name was Jimmy, a.k.a. Dick Rowland. On May 30th, 1921, Rowland entered an elevator in the downtown Drexel building, an office building on South Main Street. It's unclear if Rowland tripped or accidentally touched Page, but at some point after he entered the elevator, Page supposedly screamed. Out of sheer fear for his life, Rowland fled the scene. The police were called the next morning, and with a cloak of lawless foundations, arrested Rowland. His court-appointed lawyer was Washington Hudson, a proclaimed member of the Ku Klux Klan. Racist in practice and demeanor, Hudson had no intention of providing Rowland with a fair trial. Adding gas to the fire, the Tulsa Tribune printed a story in the paper accusing Rowland of trying to subdue and rape Sarah Page, and included an accompanying editorial which stated a lynching was planned for that night. That evening, tensions heightened when a mob descended on the courthouse where Rowland was being held. If taken, Rowland's life would surely be in danger, and the tight-knit community of District Greenwood was not about to let that happen. 15,000 residents showed up to meet the mob at the courthouse and protect his life. When the angry white men demanded the sheriff hand over Roland, the sheriff refused, and his men barricaded the top floor of the courthouse to protect the black teenager. To keep Roland protected overnight, a group of black World War I veterans agreed to arm themselves and stand guard. Eventually, the white mob and the black vets confronted each other face to face, which resulted in gunfire. One of the white men was shot by a black war vet. Immediately, chaos broke out. As dawn broke on June 1st, thousands of white citizens poured into the Greenwood district and began looting, burning homes and businesses over the area of 35 blocks. During the riots, many of the firefighters who arrived to help put out the fires testified that the white rioters threatened them with guns and forced them to leave. Many of the riots began on the Fresco Railroad tracks between First Avenue and Archer Street. Many blacks fought back to protect their families and homes. They would meet at the Dreamland Theater to plan their strategy, but in the end, the opposition just outnumbered them. According to historians, some black Tulsans just fell to their knees and were decapitated. Reports say World War I military planes dropped nitroglycerin bombs on the district like it was a combat zone. Many of the whites started looting and burning the homes of black doctors and lawyers who resided on Standpipe Hill. Items such as grand pianos, mink coats, and Masonic jewelry were taken. Oklahoma's governor, James Brooks Aries Robertson, called in the National Guard and declared martial law before noon. By this time, the riots had burned and had subsided. Even though the guardsmen helped put out the fires, they ultimately imprisoned many black Tulsans who stayed behind to defend their property. By June 2nd, some 6,000 people were under armed guard at local fairgrounds.
It was a snapshot where you had a whole community, when you had a whole city, you had a whole culture of people who did things the right way.
That tragic event itself came about because of something that was fabricated. That's how I feel. With the whole incident with Dick Rowland tripping, falling on a young lady, and, other people bearing witness and her yelling rape. It led to the unfolding of everything that happened. The way it makes me feel like it it really upsets me, but not only did it upset me, it made me stronger. The reason why I say it made me strong is because I felt as though it was something that people wanted to keep from us. They didn't want us to have because of the unity. They seen the strength and what could be. And the reason why I say it makes me feel even stronger about it is because I know what could be and what we're trying to recreate.
Jealousy and envy is one of the scariest traits to have. And so I learned that jealousy and envy and pure racism and hate is what allowed 35 street blocks of Black excellence to be completely destroyed.
Those families, even a year after the tragic bombing, there were 49 families that were still without homes, that were living in tents. They had to depend on the generosity of the American Red Cross just to have blankets. These were people who had mansions, all of a sudden had nothing and were, that of paupers on the street. And I think that even the wealthiest man in that town was chased down, and they tried to charge him with inciting a riot. And he had to escape in the middle of the night with his son to Chicago to save his own life. And I believe that all of these things were done, and this tragedy was then used as a tool to recruit for the KKK, and Oklahoma became a stronghold of that white supremacist and racist organization. And it is really sad that then this tragic history was swept under the rugs and people didn't even know about it. People who grew up in Tulsa their whole life had no idea that there had ever been a Black Wall Street, or that it had been systematically destroyed by basically white militiamen and KKK members, basically.
So what's really interesting is that I was reading about different things that had happened to African Americans in history. And like I said, I stumbled upon this story about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the word that kept coming up was riot. And then one of the articles explained exactly why they kept saying riot, and pointed out that it was because of insurance claims, because if they actually used what happened, which was a massacre, then they would have to pay the people who were killed and their families the money. And so they kept saying riot. But it was so much more devastating and gruesome than the word riot. If you compare it to what we see now, a riot is a group of people who might be angry, and it can escalate from there. But a massacre is you intentionally coming out to kill numerous people just in the name of we want them gone. We don't want them here. And that's what happened. And
I am the founder and managing director of Next Gen Tax Services, a public accounting firm. We exist to help create and educate the next generation of ultra successful business owners. In Tulsa, we really, I feel like, grew up. We're not from here, but this has become home to us. And it's where my husband and I both started our company. I think if you don't acknowledge your history, you're destined to repeat it. I think it's time for honest conversation. It was a massacre.
Man, woman, and child murdered on the spot. Never seen it coming, probably never heard a shot. 35 blocks. 35 blocks. Man, woman, and child murdered on the spot. Wow. Never seen it coming, probably never heard a shot. 35 blocks. 35 blocks. I know they thought it was over. I hear the march of the soldier. I see the traces of hate. I say the fault of the cobra. The block is on fire. Somebody hauling the hoses. The stock is going higher since our Wall Street folded. Money, power, respect. Is it all three motives? The time we can forget. Sometimes we lose our focus. But I can see the light like Christ talking to Moses. I stay awoke for those who don't know the half of the culture. I pray for folk, it was a shame for what happened in Tulsa. That used to be the avenue where the black-owned store was. Right where they shoveled the ashes, laughing where the smoke was, man. I don't know, cuz, I'm saying. I don't know, cuz.
They don't like me to tell the story until they punch my number. I will be telling the same story. And I rush to tell it because I live in reality. At 85, you take 87, 88, hell, I'm close to the end. And it hurts me that I'm about to take the last part of my life to educate my kids as opposed to being able to live the joy for 85-year-old man's life. But I'll do that. If I didn't do it, I would not get anything. First was a massacre, which you call the riot. Next was expressway. And then there was urban renewal.
You know, basically they removed all of our assets, right? And that highway out there, they plowed it right through Greenwood. There are no exits coming off the highway. Go out there and look.
Just to be here right now, this is the legendary Standpipe Hill. This is part of the jealousy that existed during the time of 1921, where whites were just so jealous and envious of whites that had black people that had the opportunity to pull their resources together and build mansions. So you can't see what I'm seeing right now, but I'm looking over the south side of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where if I came home from World War I and I was to see a black thriving community of mansions of black people, I guess I would be a little jealous as well. So we're actually on the actual site of Standpipe Hill, which played a major part. A lot of the jealous white people came to Standpipe Hill. Not only did they loot the homes and steal furs and jewelry and things of that nature, but before they burnt it down, they went into the homes because these were mansions. I mean, you look around, you can see remnants, you can see bricks, you can see the actual house line where the houses were, the walkway, walking up to the home. So it's just amazing to actually see this and actually stand on the actual Standpipe Hill.
Scientists in Oklahoma are one step closer to finding possible evidence of mass graves linked to one of the worst incidents of racial violence in our country's history. Researchers in Tulsa used ground-penetrating radar to survey 3 sites. They found irregularities at 2 of those sites that could be consistent with large-scale burials.
Here we have Oklahoma Cemetery that was established in 1902. Many of the victims and the bodies that were burned during the Tulsa massacre were buried right here. However, many bodies were also buried outside the cemetery. So we just wanted to come here to show that this is where a lot of the lives that were lost during 1921, May 31st, June 1st, were actually buried in this cemetery right here, which is Oak Lawn Cemetery.
My belief is that the majority of the mass graves are already covered up by concrete. Bodies dumped in rivers. There's a lot of data that says, you know how rivers flow? Like, so as far as Muskogee, like they're saying bodies got that far. There's supposed to be, yeah, there you go. There's supposed to be a letter from the mayor of Muskogee written to the mayor of Tulsa saying, you know, basically you dump these Negroes in the river, stop, what you gonna do about it? Because they done made it all the way to Muskogee.
As I look back at it now, I'm 72 years old, so I can figure some stuff out. Psychologically, they were damaged, you know, because they were never talked about. And one day, our great-grandfather, who was 116 when he passed, he said, I killed him. No explanation, just I killed him. So I love.
So you have been, that was your great-grandfather?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we found out that he was involved, that he was to protect his friend and his loved one.
Right.
And because of the statute of limitations on murder, you know, he kept us quiet and then wouldn't share it with us much, so that nobody else would get it, that he ended up still doing some time or being ostracized or whatever.
Which is north side of the track would be the side of the first building that you heard this way, right here. Yeah. Okay. So that's the track. We're going north this way. Right. Okay. Yeah. So man, what we did, I just commissioned the artists to do this, to really, these 4 pictures, we trying to tell a story about, you know, historic Greenwood. You can make a way with anything. Digging ditches.
They made $1.15.
Selling Pepsi, making lemonade, or doctors, lawyers, whatever. So that's what we're kind of trying to show there. And over here, you know, that's marching band.
And this is right down the street?
That's right.
Yeah, that's where the strip where we were just saying?
Yeah, that's right down there.
Right down there. That little strip. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that hurts is that you have got to bring so much history that has been ignored. And youngsters, we finally got their attention. But what it does, you have to be careful. Because a lot of them will tell you, right, I didn't know that. Right? All of that's been swept under Tulsa's carpet all these years. And this is what I tell everybody, and I feel this way. The black women can control the economy of any city.
I really think that we need to look at change on multiple levels, where we have policy change. We have to get educations that are free, you know, not free, but cheaper. Because if you think about it, I'm looking not at myself. I think, you know, I can help, but we're looking at the generations that are coming up behind us. And we're seeing that so many kids come out with so much debt from college that they can't even begin to think, how am I going to start to be an entrepreneur? How am I going to start a business? I'm going to spend the next 10 years just trying to dig myself out of this financial debt. So we have to have educational changes. We have to acknowledge that this stuff happened. We have to, because I think Black Lives Matter and all the fighting that we're doing right now is because people are beginning to say it. We see you. We see that this happened to you and it was wrong. And so for the first time in history, we have Black people and white people just in droves marching together.
The same spirit that fueled all of the success in Black Wall Street is something that we need to take hold of today. We don't need to be downtrodden because of the tragedy. We need to be inspired. We need to understand that history gives us a good roadmap of how to recreate Black Wall Street in a way that can't be burned down.
Everywhere you turned in that area in Greenwood, there was a Black-owned business, and they supported one another. We are so much further ahead that it's amazing. It's amazing with the resources that we have today that we're not doing what they set out to do back then. And they were tremendously successful. So for me, it's an inspiration to continue to seek out other Black-owned businesses as I do my coaching, as I do my executive training, to really help Black-owned businesses tap into that resource and really use that as an inspiration to inspire our youth as I go back into the communities to find that diamond in the rough, to bring forward, to be successful.
Is how inspiring the stories are of the people that were in business and the kind of money that they had and how they invested in each other and supported each other's businesses. And I definitely believe that those are principles that we need to have happen today way more often than it does. I think it's starting to, but I think the more people learn about it, the more people realize that we'll be able to do it again. We'll be able to have Black hotel chains and things like that. But if people can't see it, or if it's never been done before, sometimes people don't believe it can happen. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about learning about these great entrepreneurs that were around in Tulsa in the early 1920s.
And when you invest in your community, you actually hire people of the community. You can create sustainable jobs, and that goes into the tax base, and it also helps you build better institutions, whether it be school, whether it be the fire department, police department, whether it be sanitation. So I strongly believe in investing into your own community.
I think the key takeaway is they were able to create their own sub-economy, that micro-economy that provided all the goods and services that were in demand.
We as a community also need to have a mind toward community serving businesses. That means, yeah, we want to make money and we want to make as much as we can, but we need to do it in a way that serves the needs and the interests of our community. What does our community need in terms of food? What does our community need in terms of health? What kind of institutions can we construct that will make us money, but will also serve the most vulnerable in our community? That's part of what's necessary here. We need to develop pride in our businesses. We need to be able to say, I'm going to that place because it's the Black business. Now, of course, the Black business should have a fair price and great service, but we have to be intentional about saying we want to support ourselves. The reason why Tulsa worked was because we understood that we needed to build something for ourselves. And part of that was born out of the fact that we couldn't go to white people's stuff. But now that we can go to white people's stuff, we need to say, look, even though white people got a tailor or a dry cleaner or a fried chicken shack, we can fry chicken, we can dry clean clothes, we can tailor suits just like they can. And also, even if ours costs 10 cents more, maybe it's worth paying that 10 cents or $2 or whatever it is so that we can support our own. We need that mindset as well.
Because of segregation, we didn't have a financial advocate. And I think this time around, financial advocacy is so important. And that's why when I look at teaching, about cash value life insurance, the insurance companies, which are the granddaddy financial institutions of everything came out of the insurance companies, the banking systems, the lending systems, everything that's controlled the money, a principle that we call velocity of money, which basically being able to have a dollar, take a dollar, spend a dollar, earn a dollar, and recycle that money back. That was all started by the insurance companies. So when you look at this time around, having a financial advocate, when you have a financial advocate that is in advocacy with you and helping you to be in control of your money, then that is going to be something that's going to be able to kind of like keep all that negative stuff away from you.
So no matter how technologically advanced the world gets, that core function of what business is stays the same. So we can learn a lot about how they did that. How did they identify the needs? How did they know where to spend their money or spend their dollar? I think in that time, there was more of value put on the relationship of doing business with someone that looks like you. A lot of those dollars where, you may have a maid who works for a white family somewhere else. When she gets paid, okay, she's taking her money and she's gonna spend it in Greenwood. So, understanding that there was a conscientious decision, there was a conscious choice to say, I'm going to take this dollar and place it here. And so I think we can learn a lot of why they chose to do that, how they saw the value in that, and then them seeing that as the more that they did that, then the greater and the more thriving their community became. So I think it's important for us to understand that and know that so that we can see that what we're doing now, or if we do that now, that's the building blocks to rebuilding that in a modern day.
But the most important reason is the hope that we give the next generation. So when I go to the schools, when they think of entrepreneur, they think of white man, suit, car, living a life, blonde hair, blue eyes. I started this business. Why? Because the places that they go work for are owned by these people. But when I go into a school and I'm dressed like this and I look like them, I'm redefining entrepreneurship. And I can teach them, I not only show them what success looks like, but teach them how I got it. And that group of generation, those group of people, when I'm not in the classroom, if they can follow somebody else on Instagram, or they can see somebody else on Twitter that's building a business, or they can see somebody else in their community that's building a business, they grow up with the belief that an entrepreneur looks like me. We gotta continue to educate. Because if you're Black and you're another race, and your product is inferior, do you really expect me to spend with an inferior product? And that's a question that we have to ask ourselves. But if we educate how we can make sure we walk in excellence in everything we do, then it makes it easier to shop Black. Because we always have these things where, Black people are lazier. You hire a Black contractor and, they don't come to, these are real things, you feel me? So I think it's important to keep the money in the community. We gotta start to continue to educate entrepreneurs. We gotta continue to educate how to deliver a solid product. Something that we don't have, I don't wanna support you because you're you. I don't wanna support you because you're Black. I wanna support you because you got a great product. I wanna go to you not because you're a Black doctor. I wanna go to you because you're the best doctor in the world.
When I opened Uncle Bobby's Coffee and Books, I was very keenly aware of Tulsa. And I wanted to follow some of those principles. I wanted to say, what does the community need? What can I build in my community that, of course, will be sustainable economically, but serves their needs? I could have built this store in a fancy neighborhood like Chestnut Hill. I could have gone downtown where I'd have more foot traffic. But I decided that Black people deserve beauty, that Black people deserve to have their needs met, and at a high level. And the community rewarded me by coming every day and buying stuff, coming every day and supporting us. And every day we have that relationship where we meet their needs, we serve their needs, we read to their children, right? We have speakers come who talk to their interests, and they come and they support us. And that model is built on Tulsa. But again, the goal isn't just to have one of me. My goal is to create space and hold space so that there can be 2 of me, and then 4 of me, and then 10 of me. And some will be bookstores, and some will be dry cleaners, and some will be restaurants, and some will be public health clinics. But if we do that, then we have Tulsa. But we got to start somewhere. And my goal is just to be part of that start.
The financial stability that's needed for Black business owners is really tied to one another. We need to support one another. We need to be willing to spend our dollars in the Black community with Black-owned businesses. Now it's a unique time in this country where I feel like Black-owned businesses are more supportive of one another than ever before. And that needs to continue, because when we lean into one another and support one another, there's nothing we can't do. Black Wall Street is a perfect example of that. Because they supported one another, they were the most successful area, not just in Tulsa, not even just in Oklahoma, but across the country.
How do you right that wrong? I mean, that's a chapter in history in which there has to be, how do you address that? So there's arguments for whether or not reparations, should take place. I mean, how do you restore that? How do you quantify it? I'm not saying that is the next step after it. It's just that is a loss that was insured, that wasn't indemnified. How do you indemnify that now, almost 100 years later? Probably impossible to do. Well, I'm encouraged by young folks, African Americans, who are pursuing entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, in order to grow a business, you need capital. And so I think the next step for African Americans will be, how do you form capital in a way? And there are some promising ventures. There are, in New York, there's Harlem Capital has been formed, right? And so they are out trying to cobble together dollars in order to provide venture capital for entrepreneurs. You have African American money managers. There are some large money managers who are now able to control some of the investment capital that is in the system. How do you redirect that back towards entrepreneurs who can actually grow, have business ideas that can turn into real businesses that are growth oriented? So you need some education as another component in order to make sure that as these businesses grow, they can actually do things like create jobs for others.
Again, it goes back to intention, and it all has to be intentional. We have to want it. We have to fight for it. It is not going to be something that just accidentally happens. It's not going to be, again, like a Kardashian situation where, oh, you know, we have a show, it becomes a hit, and we're all going to be successful from that. No, because we tear ourselves down. We've been told for too many years and for too long that we're not worthy, and so that's what we project, that's what we bring to the table, that we need to ask someone else for that help. So it has to be very intentional that we work towards that type of prosperity and
My name is Terry Corvette. I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida. I got into tailoring when I was 12 years old. That's my, as my financial guys say, that's my core competence. But in the hood, we say that's what I do. So I'm a tailor by trade. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. I fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since. Recently, over the last couple of years, I launched a couple of products outside of tailoring. My daughter was diagnosed with autism, and I was sitting in the kitchen with my wife. We were doing chores, and I was trying to think of something that I could be sustainable to help children like her, either today or when I'm long gone. And so I created a plant-based detergent called Purpose. So it's a detergent with a purpose, and that's to help kids with autism. I'm just trying to leave a legacy and hopefully inspire and hopefully give as much people hope.
My business here, LA Line, in between 15th and Broad on Snyder. Growth in our community is good for our young people to see. Me, regular person, walking up and down the street, they see me, they know me, they see me in a business. They see how I conduct myself. Now they know that looking on that corner, I don't have to do that corner. I don't have to do this, that, those, and them. I can actually build a business just like Mr. LA did.
My name is Darren Meadows. I'm junior. Born and raised in Philadelphia, and I reside in Philadelphia. 30 years old, and I'm the CEO of my own film production company called Vision Productions. And I'm also the partner and director of entertainment for the field anything that you can possibly think of was there. And when you look at it today and you're like, and you actually do your research and learn it, it's like, damn, they had that? It's kind of like an anomaly of you don't even think that it's possible to do that now. And that's what the Field app is actually here to do, to show that we can recreate that, to show that it's actually doable. It's something that's not far-fetched.
Right,
we just gotta open our minds and really come together. It's that.
Right.
You traveling, you and your friends traveling, y'all wanna go grab something to eat. We gonna highlight some food. Click on the food app. If you're looking for a restaurant, you're looking for a grocery store, whatever it is that you're looking for, we have the tab for it.
Well, the Field app is basically me giving back power to the people, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's me giving people the power to use their money where they want to use it, right in their hand. You know what I mean? It's like I said, it's like a directory with all Black-owned businesses, and we really just want to make things as convenient as possible for you to circulate your money back into the community.
If you want to start a business, think about a cause. Think about what you do so well, because that's your gift.
I would start with network. When you're an entrepreneur, you're doing what you're passionate about. The last thing you may be thinking about is selling those services or products to others because you believe your passion will take you there to success. But the network is powerful. You have to make sure you have that cliche of your elevator speech, because once you get in front of your ideal client, knowing your ideal client, making sure that when you get in front of them, you're ready to make sure that they're aware of what you are offering and the value that your business is bringing. I would also say, in addition to networking, make sure that you understand you have to work on your business, not just in your business. I was just at an event where I met a group of doctors, very passionate about what they do, looking at functional medicine. Insurance companies don't pay for it. So the last thing a doctor is thinking about doing is selling service. But unfortunately, that's what it comes down to as an entrepreneur. You have to get yourself out there, and people have to know the value that you bring. It doesn't take away from what you have, but you have to be able to do it. And a lot of times we're so passionate about what we do, we don't think about the sales skills that need to go along with that.
Probably that life cycle of a good idea with excitement, evolution, engagement, resistance, and decision. Keep every phase with you as you move on to the next phase, meaning if you're excited about the idea now, when you move into evolution and you're evolving that idea, you gotta stay excited. Don't lose the excitement, because it's easy to lose the excitement because this is the work of putting it all together. It's still exciting, but it's not as exciting of when I had this idea. Because in the evolution, you're looking at roadblocks, you're looking at all the things that could stop you. And then when you move on to engagement, you gotta remain excited, and you gotta continue to evolve the idea even while you're engaging other people. And that's where we lose it. We're trying to sell, and we're not excited because we're starting to, we have to hear other people's opinion about our product, and that's not exciting. But as we're engaging people, if we stay excited and we're still evolving, we'll ask someone when we move to that resistance phase, why are you resisting? Why are you not buying my product? And you take that information, you continue to evolve it, and you stay excited because, wow, okay, I'm evolving now, I'm still engaging. And when that resistance comes, I use it as data to continue to evolve. That's why I'm still excited and I'm still engaging. And then we make a decision to scale. We continue to move forward. Stop trying to get excited about every little thing that moves, because the worst thing that can happen to an entrepreneur is mild success. Because as we get mildly successful, we start building something, we might get to $4,000, $5,000 a month. We're like, oh, you know what? I'm doing this now, and I'm gonna start doing real estate too, because I killed it over here and you didn't kill it. You need to stay in that lane. Stop getting excited about everything that moves and stay focused on what you're building right now.
A good idea is still a good idea 3 weeks from now. Do your homework on your business idea. And the last thing I would say is that you never lose in business. Either you win or you learn. So don't look at any mistake as a failure. Look at it as an expensive lesson and keep it moving.
They spend the first 5 years of your journey acquiring assets. An asset is something that makes money, a liability is something that takes money. So knowing the difference, if you have assets, things that produce income monthly without you having to trade your labor, then it makes it easier for you to grow an empire. Perfect example. If I buy a 4-unit property and I'm renting out each one of those units for $1,000 and my mortgage on that property is $2,000, that means I'm cash flowing, making $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year. So now let's say I want to be a barber or a tailor or a digital marketer. I now have $24,000 a year that I can invest into growing that company. So I don't have to go and trade my labor for that 24 grand. So now it's a lot easier on my body and my mental, because I know that if something goes wrong and I make a mistake, as I will on my business journey, and I lose this 24,000, guess what? It's coming back. It's replenishing itself. So you want to build your empire and build what you're doing off of acquiring assets. Assets that, number one, can give you tax advantages, that provide cash flow every month. You can pass them down, you know, hard, physical, tangible assets. And so that is what I would say I would have people focus on. You know, that's, to me, it's the most important.
The most successful businesses that I've ever seen started with the person being hungry. You got to be hungry for this, because no one ever makes it from success. Success very rarely comes from success. Success usually comes from failure. So you're going to fail in the beginning, and that's okay, because from your failures, you will learn how to be successful. Invest your money. Invest your money in the things that you believe in, the things that are innate to you. If you're just saying, I'm going to invest in things because they're popular, I don't think that works. You have to believe in something. You have to have a dog in that fight for it to actually matter to you, for you to see things grow.
From the business standpoint, get you a good CPA who understands tax law, because you are in business so that you can be able to have the tax code, have the tax laws work in your favor. Because if you make it and you can't keep it, did you really make it? So first and foremost is to get you a good, not just CPA, a CPA who understands tax law. The second thing is, every dollar that you make, save half of it. Because when you have cash, opportunities will find you. The third thing I would tell them to do is get as early as young as you are to set yourself up with a cash value life insurance specially designed so you can have control of your money and compound interest for life. And the third thing I would say would make you your biggest investment. Invest in your talent and your skills to get better, because as you get better, everything else around you will get better. And the final thing I would tell them to look to get into the best possible network that you can. Because if you are the smartest person in the room, then you are in the wrong room. So those would be the 5 things that I would encourage any aspiring business owner and any aspiring entrepreneur to do.
I say start scared. I remember when I very first started NextGen, and I had a couple dollars to my name and the skill set, the knowledge, the abilities, but was afraid. I mean, was so afraid, in fact, that I bought equipment and kept the boxes for it just in case this didn't work out. But I did it, and I ultimately didn't let fear stop me from starting. So I think that's one of the challenges that many business owners are delaying their pursuits of the next great thing because they're scared. Start scared. And I don't know a business owner alive who had complete confidence in what they were doing the day they started. So knowing that everybody starts with a little bit of fear, and it's okay, and we start anyway. And they say all the time, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough.
We need to know about this period of time coming through the history of Jim Crow, because there are some signs that we're kind of living in a period of time that's similar to it. Not the same, but it's similar to it. So we have circumstances that are being created that we can actually take and do something like Greenwood, right? So I think what I'm starting to hear is there's a lot more emphasis on the idea of attending HBCUs, for instance, There's a lot more emphasis on the idea of being entrepreneurs. A number of African Americans have gone back to southern cities, and they have relocated back in the South, and they're creating their own businesses there. And so, again, if that is successful in creating strong businesses that can create jobs for others, then I think we're back on the path that we can say, here's the 21st version of Greenwood. Would it be all in one community, or would our community be comprised of African Americans that are distributed across the United States?
The picture looks grim right now. We are dying more at birth. We're not living as long. We're working harder for less money. We're getting locked up. We're getting longer sentences. We're getting executed more. I mean, all the measures of social prosperity have us at the bottom. All the indices of social misery have us at the top. There's plenty of reason to think we're going to stay like this, that our neighborhoods are going to continue to be controlled by outsiders, that we're going to continue to be exploited workers, that we could never build Tulsa again. But I'm a prisoner of hope. Despite the odds, I believe that Black folk can do any and everything. The odds were against us surviving those slave ships. The odds were against us surviving the lash. The odds were against us ending slavery. The odds were against us winning elections. The odds were against us surviving in a world committed to destroying us. And we have beaten the odds every single time. So I have no doubt that if we muster the will, that if we organize our community, and if we struggle like we always have, that we'll replicate Tulsa, that we'll build on Tulsa, that we'll be better than Tulsa, and that we'll finally be as free as we deserve.
Don't ever let a man or woman have control of your destiny. I'll find my way through these trails and this mountain alone. No. I'll deal with struggle, starvation, and hunger if I have to. If I have to. If I have to. Struggle.